Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn. In this video, I'll share some tips on applying for an SFOC for a sub-250g drone at an advertised event. Tips for getting through it or around it. Let's dive in. A quick recap. As of April the 1st, 2025, drone pilots in Canada need an approved SFOC to fly a micro drone within 30 meters of an advertised event. And an advertised event is any outdoor event advertised to the general public, such as concerts, markets, or sporting events. Right now, these SFOC applications are free, but starting on November the 4th, 2025, they'll cost $75 per application. In May, I published a free downloadable template to help you get through the application process, and hundreds of you have downloaded it, with many folks commenting that it helped them get approved SFOCs quickly. In case you missed it, there's a link in the description down below. On July the 5th, we had a friendly face-to-face meeting with Transport Canada Safety Inspector Andrew Lesik, who handles nearly all the SFOC applications for Ontario. This meeting was initiated by the head of the Kingston chapter of DPAC, Paul Carl. Thank you, Paul, for setting up the meeting and for the coffee and donuts. Andrew walked through the process of applying for an SFOC and along the way offered tips that will help your application go through smoothly. I'll share these now, along with some insights from my own applications. Now, I will mention that these tips apply in Ontario, but may vary slightly in other regions. So I suggest you reach out to your regional safety inspector in your region when necessary. They don't bite. First of all, Andrew encouraged folks to work towards a standing SFOC if you think you'll be flying at advertised events on a regular basis. A standing SFOC gives you the right to fly at any advertised event without applying each time, and it applies to flights anywhere in Canada. Now, you still need to give TC 5 days notice of an advertised event flight, but you renew only annually, meaning you need to pay the $75 only once per year, starting in November, not $75 per event. You become eligible for a standing SFOC after 3 successful individual SFOC applications. And your 4th submission essentially serves as your standing SFOC application. So he encouraged us to put in some applications, even if you don't actually fly at the events or publish videos or whatever. You just need to get your applications approved. So this process demonstrates your knowledge of the rules and your ability to plan flights safely. Andrew's second tip was regarding the lead time of 30 business days for an SFOC application. This is often considered a major issue. And while this is the actual ruling, Andrew did state that if you have a last-minute request, say within 2 weeks' notice, reach out to him directly or your regional inspector and ask if they can still accommodate the request. In many cases, they can make it happen. So don't get all wound up around the axle on the 30 business day lead time. TC can be flexible. No guarantee, but they might make it happen. Next, a couple of tips about the SFOC form itself. Andrew indicated that much of the information on the application form is directly cut and pasted into their online system internally. So completing the PDF electronically can really help speed things up for them. Part F, the purpose of the RPAS operation, has sometimes baffled me since it appears to be a duplicate of one of the compliance checklist questions. Andrew indicated that it's okay to provide the bare minimum here, just the address or GPS coordinates if there isn't an address for the flight, and a quick blurb like parade video or whatever. Keep it simple. On the second page, where a list of drones, pilots, and spotters is requested, provide what you can, but don't sweat it for sub-250g drones. They don't need a registration number or safety assurance level, and pilots don't need to be certified. Just put NA if you don't have a registration or certificate. And you don't need to tell them if your spotter, say Joe is on the form and then you change him out at the last minute. One of the intents here is to show that you understand safety concerns, The final details of who your spotter was, for example, these details aren't crucial, as long as you're not cutting corners, of course. Lastly on the form is the darn signature. Yes, they need it. And yes, the e-signature tool doesn't work for a lot of people. It didn't work for me. Print the form, sign it, and either scan it or just take a picture with your phone and then attach that. But if you do supply your signature this way, still include the electronically filled out SFOC form without the signature with your application, so TC can still do their cut and paste thing. The second form you need to fill out and send in with your application form is the compliance checklist. At the top of the form, a couple of things to note. First of all, be consistent with how you put your name or company. Transport Canada assigns you a 6-digit file number when you do your first SFOC, and this file number sticks with you over the years. If you apply first under, say, just your name and no company name, you'll be given a file number. But then if you later add a company name, like I did by accident, saying DonDronesOn as the company, they will create a separate file number for the company. And this can affect that countdown towards a standing SFOC. So I screwed up on my last application. But fortunately, Andrew actually caught it and matched things up. So be consistent. And after your first application, start putting your 6-digit file number on that compliance form to make sure all your applications do in fact stay together. On the rest of the compliance checklist, be sure to indicate the file name of the document containing the answers to each question. This way, TC doesn't need to search around for the answers. Now, if you use my template for a support document, you don't need to provide page numbers at all because the template sections are numbered exactly the same as the compliance checklist. So it all matches up perfectly, and it's easy for the inspector to find the answers to each question. The checklist asks for registration certificates for your drone and pilot certificates. These are, of course, optional, like I said, if you're flying a sub-250g drone. But if you do have these documents, you do not need to supply the actual certificates or the PDFs for them. Just provide the registration number and pilot certificate number if you have those. The number is enough. And if you provided the numbers on the SFOC form, that first form, you can just say CSFOC form on the compliance checklist. No need to duplicate. For item 11 on the compliance checklist, they ask for a site survey. Andrew actually used the site survey that Drone Pilot Canada generates as an example of one way to satisfy this requirement. It works for him perfectly. Now, because the compliance checklist is a Word document rather than a PDF, it's easier to sign it electronically. Just take a picture of your signature and paste in the JPEG file. Easy peasy. When you submit your material to Transport Canada, supply everything as attachments to one email. Your application will go through a fairly quick quality control process first to check that you provided everything that's required, including, of course, those signatures. And you'll be assigned an ATS number for reference. The ATS number is specific to the event. Always include that ATS number in any follow-up emails for that event to ensure things get matched up properly. Now, that QC check will also look to see if you've provided enough lead time, that 30 business day thing. But if you've already cleared the way in advance with your regional safety inspector for, say, a last-minute application, the QC team should not block your application. Communicate openly, and all should go well. Now, I mentioned that there are some ways around even applying for an SFOC for an advertised event. The first one is the most obvious and may work for you or may not. Just stay 30 meters or 100 feet outside the boundary for the advertised event. We talked about how the boundary is defined at our meeting, and it's not cast in concrete in a lot of cases. Sure, if there's a fence or some other barrier, it may be obvious, but otherwise you can use your own good judgment and safety-oriented thinking to determine that boundary. The rule of thumb is to identify where people are arriving and gathering and stay 30 meters away from that, both for taking off and landing, as well as the actual drone flight path. Stay 30 meters away and you don't need an SFOC. Simple. The other workaround is to turn publicly advertised events into more of a private event where the public is aware of the drone operation and accepts the risk. In other words, everyone becomes part of the operation instead of simply being bystanders. Transport Canada actually suggested this to me when I had concerns about my Tamworth Soapbox Derby SFOC. One of the standard restrictions for sub-250g drones is to stay 5 meters away from bystanders. And that wouldn't work for my case due to the constrained area for the race. The spectators are just too close. What TC suggested was to prominently post notices at all entry points to the event area, explaining that entry into the area implies acknowledgement of the drone activity. So I did exactly that for the Soapbox Derby. I posted these signs in the area of the race. But one issue that my partner pointed out was that the signs would be ignored. Who reads drone signs? So she suggested that these signs should be used, because after all, everyone reads lost cat notices. I had 6 copies of each posted around the event, and I actually heard a few people laughing about the cat ones. So they actually did read them, and all was well. And of course, nobody got hurt by my drone, and the cat was not found. I want to wrap up by encouraging you to follow the regulations as best you can. These workarounds that I suggest may make your drone operation easier, but please fly safely at all times. Try not to bother people with your drone flights, and most importantly, have fun. Thank you to Andrew Lesik of Transport Canada for meeting with us and having a great constructive conversation. And thanks to you guys for watching.